everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Only Playbook. I am excited because we got the full house, full squad back. Shashot's joined us here. It is Shovit, me, and Shashot. We are back, week 8, under wraps. We need to recap the entirety of all of that. How are you guys doing?
Doing solid.
Yeah, man. Doing great. A lot of things are happening, and we got a lot to talk about. It's like we're halfway into the fantasy season, so hopefully everybody's got a good enough squad to move forward.
Yeah, unless you're me. But I've talked too much about my team and how much I suck. So I'm not going to spend time talking about that. But trade deadline was today at 4:00 Eastern time. So a lot of movement in the NFL. Things are shaking up. That is going to impact fantasy football as the season progresses. We will jump into all of that, guys. Without further ado, let's kick it off with water cooler talk. A lot of trades happened between probably this morning and trade deadline. The most amount of trades I think I can recall in an NFL season, at least the day of, anyways, in recent memory. So I'm going to run through these. Stop me if there's anything you want to add, if there's anything fantasy relevant that is important to note. But I'll run through these as quick as I can. Bears traded Roquan Smith, linebacker, to the Ravens. That actually had already happened a couple of days before. Ravens needing help on the defensive side, and Bears are rebuilding. So it makes sense. Our Vikings lost Irv Smith 8 to 10 weeks with a high ankle sprain, but we did not wait. We did not rest on our laurels. We went out and said, you know what? We're going to take a tight end from a division rival. We trade for TJ Hawkinson, package 2 picks going there, 2 picks coming here. All in all, TJ Hawkinson gets to come play with the Minnesota Vikings, leaving Detroit. Big acquisition for the Vikings offense there. Shovit, your receiver, Chase Claypool, says ta-ta to Pittsburgh. He is officially coming into the Vikings division. He is now traded to the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields getting some receiver help there. Darnell Mooney no longer has to be the sole provider on the receiving core. Hopefully Chase Claypool can finally maximize the potential that we continue to see once every 7 games from him. Calvin Ridley sitting out this year, but that doesn't mean he can't get traded. He is sitting on his couch, and now he is officially a Jacksonville Jaguar. So I don't know if you're Calvin Ridley, how you feel about going from the Falcons to the Jaguars, but he can't play this year anyway. So hopefully next year Jacksonville is, building from what they've already done this year with Doug Peterson, with trading away Robinson, ETN being kind of the workhorse and the focal point, but they now have a true wide receiver 1 as long as Ridley does not continue to bet on the Jags to lose every game next year.
Yeah, there's no income taxes Florida, but he probably does not making any income being suspended for the whole year. So no benefits there.
That's a wash. It's a wash. It's what we call a push in the betting world. I'm sure Ridley is familiar with that. Bradley Chubb, Broncos unload star linebacker defensive end Bradley Chubb. He is officially a Dolphin now. That's a big get for Miami. Their defense has been struggling. Broncos kind of in a world where they don't really know if they should sell or buy, if they're for real or not. I mean, I think if you're a Denver Broncos fan and if you're the front office, you expected this year to be a year where you were competing for a Super Bowl. So it's a little strange that they're trading away somebody who is a focal point of that defense, but he is coming up on a payday, and maybe they just wanted to move on because they don't see a world where this team competes this year. So Bradley Chubb is officially a Miami Dolphin. Jeff Wilson gets to reunite with Mike McDaniel. The 49ers trade him to the Dolphins as well. So they officially have Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, and they made another move. Part of that Bradley Chubb trade, they sent Chase Edmonds back to Denver. So now it's Mostert and Jeff Wilson, both 49ers, both reuniting, or Mostert was already there, but Wilson reuniting with Mostert and head coach Mike McDaniel. So a lot more offensive firepower, at least maybe some that they can utilize. And Chase Edmonds says goodbye. Steelers also make another move. They trade for cornerback William Jackson. I think the Steelers need as much help as they can possibly get on the defensive end. So getting a cornerback, another guy that can help cover some of these receivers that they continually have to go up against, hopefully is going to help them in the latter part of the season. Couple of last-minute running backs get swapped. Nyheim Hines goes from Indianapolis to Buffalo, and Buffalo says, we'll give you Zach Moss. So I don't really know what to make of that weird tier 3 running back trade. I think Hines is already kind of like a Singletary, James Cook blend, if you will. So I don't really know what their wanting or what they saw in getting Nyheim Hines. I don't know if you guys have any idea for what to make of this trade. Zach Moss goes back to Indy, maybe probably being the backup to Jonathan Taylor as a true actual running back where, they had Hines, who was more so of a pass catcher. But do you have anything to make of this trade? Was kind of the most interesting one to me, because why is Buffalo, if they're going to upgrade at running back, why not go out and get a premier running back and not just a guy who basically is, in my opinion, what Singletary already can be, and what James Cook is. James Cook, in my opinion, has a chance to be better than what Hines is. So anything to make of this weird running back trade?
Yeah, I mean, I like the Hines upgrade because he's more of a passing guy than Zach Moss will ever be. I think they're tired of what Zach Moss can offer, which is a really, really low ceiling. There's nothing exciting about Zach Moss. He basically just comes in to relieve Singletary and relieve Cook. But now, instead of just the relief part, we would have seen more of what Hines can offer if he didn't have that concussion. But for a passing team that likes to throw the ball a lot, Hines can play slot receiver. Hines can come out of the backfield and he's really fast. He's really fast and he's really quick. And Dalvin Cook's little brother, he's fast, but I'm not sure if he's that level of quick as Hines is. And I think they like that intriguing factor. And Singletary has established his role. I mean, this far into the season, I think Cook is just trying to get that, the burst later in the games, maybe like give Singletary some relief. But they're very happy with giving Singletary the majority of the carries and just seeing what Cook can do. But adding Hines, I think, improves his team over Zach Moss. Zach Moss was just taking carries. That's all he was doing. It was just a break time fill in. And now they have something a little bit more than just a break time filling as far as big plays, and what other team loves big plays more than the Bills. So it improves them a little bit from a passing standpoint. From a running standpoint, they're just happier with what Cook has been doing with that Zach Moss role. So it's an upgrade in a slight form.
Yeah, I like Hines. Hines is a good player. And again, if you're going from a really bad team in Indianapolis to, perennial Super Bowl contender in the Buffalo Bills, you're probably pretty happy if you're Hines. And I think the Bills will probably find a way to use him and maximize his skill set. Out of all the trades that happened today, guys, is there any one that shocked you the most, that you're most excited about or most disappointed about? Or is there a guy that should have gotten traded that didn't get traded that you're a little disappointed about?
I don't know about disappointed, but I thought Cam Akers would have gotten traded, and the fact that he didn't is kind of strange. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I guess they're probably just going to maybe release him after the end of the year. I thought that was going to happen. But yeah, I mean, that's about it.
Yeah, and then Brandon Cooks, like, what are we doing there? Like, what's happening there? His value is not going to get better. This was the best time to get something out of this trade, and I'm not sure why that didn't happen.
I think his price tag was just way too high, like as far as his salary goes, and he's 30. So how do you really want to go for a guy like Brandon Cooks?
Yeah, that's what they said about DeAndre Hopkins. That's what he said. They were like, "You're 30, bro. Like, we're washed." And now he's taking receipts. So I don't know. It's definitely not the same situation. Cooks has been injured so much more in his career, and he's got multiple hamstring issues, which is the last thing you want from your receivers. But yeah, just a little shocking. And also, there was another shocking thing that didn't really happen. I think I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
Maybe for me it was Kareem Hunt. I thought for sure Kareem Hunt would get moved just because he has value. He is an RB1 if he goes to a team that needs a running back. And again, the Browns, he is just a compliment. He's literally just a complimentary piece to this Browns team because Chubb is such a workhorse that I think they could have gotten, really good value for him had they traded him. But I mean, again, I don't know if they're just, they don't want to risk the off chance that Chubb goes down. Then you have Kareem Hunt, but I mean, they were listening to offers for like the past 2 weeks. So they were definitely open to getting rid of him. But again, probably the price tag, man. Like it's a like you said, it's an RB1 right there who's getting used like an RB2. So I guess the price tag must have been too hefty. Yeah. And by all bias aside, I think the Hawkinson trade was one that definitely surprised me the most, just because, the Vikings were rumored to look for a pass catcher on the receiving end because, the number 2 receiver Thielen and Osborne, they haven't really established themselves as a true 1B next to Jefferson. But Hawkinson, with the size, being a red zone threat and intra-division, I guess that's kind of what, kind of caught me off guard. But if I'm a Vikings fan, I'm completely ecstatic with this. You're no longer having to run out Johnny Munt and actually scheme plays for him to get open. You now have a 6'5" target in the red zone that is the 8th overall draft pick in 4 years ago, whenever that was. So Hawkinson is a tremendous value and a tremendous get for an offense that, again, being 6-1 still hasn't maximized its potential. So excited to see how KOC can unleash that. That was it. That was all the trades. Again, a lot of shuffling around. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out for the latter half of the season with fantasy and then just kind of team success as a whole. But it's exciting. It's always exciting for trade season, rumor mills, everything. And, for the players that, again, thought they were going to get traded, we're expecting that and didn't get traded. I'm sure they were disappointed. So the Cam Akers one, Shove It, is definitely the one that I'm just kind of scratching my head on, because even if you got a 7th round pick for him, it's better than releasing him for nothing, right? I mean, you could get nothing. You could get anything for him, and they've made it clear that he's not going to play there. So if they're just going to bench him for the rest of the season, you're just wasting a roster spot. So who knows? That's it. That's it for Water Cooler Talk, guys. Let's jump into the rundown. I will kick us off with the first game on the board that happened on Sunday morning. The Denver Broncos and the Jaguars faced off in London. Denver won this game 21-17 final. Denver is now 3-5. I'm not sure if they should be competitive or if they should be rebuilding, trading away Bradley Chubb. So the situation's a little interesting there in Denver land, but they are 3-5. Jacksonville drops to 2-6. Honestly, I don't know how Denver won this game. Their offense is still super, super ugly. 2 of 11 on third downs, 12 penalties for 81 yards. But I guess the biggest difference in this game was red zone. Denver was 3 of 3 in the red zone. Jacksonville was 1 of 3, and Denver did win the turnover battle 2-1. In terms of fantasy implications, I mean, the running back committee is exactly what we thought. Cue the vulture sound. Latavius Murray, what does he do when he plays? He scores a touchdown. This dude has scored a touchdown in the last 4 games that he has played. So this guy does nothing but get half of the carries in a backfield no matter where he's at, and he finds the end zone. If you did start Melvin Gordon, you're probably pretty happy because he also found the end zone, but it is an interesting dynamic with that backfield right now. Not necessarily sure who is the RB1, but I think if you're Denver, you're pretty happy spelling your guys and making sure somebody else doesn't go down with injury like Javonte Williams did. And now they got, who did they get? Chase Edmonds. So I don't know what he's really going to offer in an offense that, desperately needs help on the outside, but he is a pass catcher coming out of the backfield. So we'll see if he gets used. Shoba, you and I talked about on the preview episode, would you go Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton? I think both of us said Sutton, and obviously Jerry Jeudy was the one that played well. 6 catches for, I believe, 63 yards and a touchdown. Cortland Sutton right now, I don't know if it's because he can't get separation or what, but Judy's running crisp routes and he's getting open and he is getting the targets. And so that is probably the one person on the offense that you're okay having. And then the other guy that I think is the biggest surprise and maybe the most consistent guy on that offense, Greg Dulcich. He had 4 catches for 87 yards. And now in 3 games that he has started, he has had double-digit fantasy points in all of them in PPR format. So he is definitely an intriguing option. He is still a free agent in most leagues. So you can definitely claim him in waivers if you're desperate for a tight end, and Russell Wilson likes his tight end. So until he can't find Cortland Sutton on the outside, he's going to keep looking in the middle, and that's where Dulcich and Jeudy are going to be. So those are probably the 2 guys on that offense that you're going to want to have, if at all, in this, putrid offense. And obviously on the Jag side, finally getting the RB1 workload that he deserves with nobody, kind of nobody that he has to look back in the rear view. ETN had a phenomenal day, 24 carries, 156 yards and a touchdown, did catch 3 passes for 6 yards. It is going to be the ETN show moving forward. My only fear, again, with this guy is every time I watch him, I am worried when he gets tackled that he's going to get hurt because he looks so undersized. But we will see. We will see if the durability is going to be an issue there. And the last guy on that offense, Evan Ingram, as much as we shit on him, he is one of the more consistent tight ends in fantasy this year. 4 catches, 55 yards, and a touchdown. So you're pretty happy if you had him starting. But the Broncos take care of business here. Ugly game. Even if they won, I don't think Broncos fans are, relatively excited with the direction that the team is heading. But 3-5, Jags now 2-6. We'll see kind of what the state of the Denver Broncos holds moving forward with them pseudo rebuilding, pseudo not, with the trade of Bradley Chubb.
Yeah. 2 things I want to add. I think that one guy we didn't mention is KJ Hamler. I think he played a big role in the game. And the fact that Russ was able to throw it deep to him late in the game, I think it was like 30, 40 yards. Like that definitely got them into the red zone and helped their chances. And then also Greg Dulcich's hair, man, what kind of conditioner is that guy using? Like he's got just a majestic, flowy, curly hair. I'm jealous. I wish I had that. I'm going to pick him up on my team just for, just to have that kind of a, guy with that kind of hair on my team. I think that's pretty cool.
He looks like Weird Al. Like it gives me Weird Al Yankovic vibes with that hair. So I don't know, but he does have a luscious head of hair, something I cannot say for myself. So I am also jealous.
All right. Speaking of jealous, we have a game here where we have some fantasy superstars in the making that are kind of making their way out of nowhere halfway through the season. Panthers went to visit the Falcons. Carolina covered with +4, and the over hit at 41. What a high-scoring game this was. 34-37 was the final score. Carolina is now sitting 2-6, and Atlanta at 4-4. Carolina had the opportunity to actually be first in their division with a win, and they kind of blew it. And this game was just the definition of blowing it. Poor Carolina. Let's just start with saying that. They had multiple opportunities to take this game out of nowhere and missed extra point after that DJ Moore touchdown. He tried to pull a Stephon Diggs a little too early there and got rid of his helmet and got called for a 15-yard penalty personal foul, which is bullshit. I think that's really dumb.
Tell me somebody who would not be that excited when you arguably just caught the game-winning touchdown. Right? I mean, that is such a natural reaction that I think it's asinine that that's something that you can get penalized for.
Yeah, you got to make it make sense, right? Like if you take a helmet off during a drive where things are still happening, yeah, it makes sense. Or you just scored a touchdown, things have ended. Why is this helmet thing there? They'll probably fix that sometime in the future, not soon enough for the Panthers. And he also missed another extra point or another field goal in overtime to take this game away. And another missed opportunity there for Panthers kicker and Falcons. Younghoe Koo kind of did what the other guy couldn't do and took opportunity of that field goal and took the win for the Falcons. Foreman is the enigma that I was talking about earlier as far as a late season resurgence. When you have 26 touches, even your grandma will get you fantasy points. 26 for 118 and 3 touchdowns. That's unheard of. He's benefiting a lot from this Chuba Hubbard not being there, but now I think we're pretty safe putting Foreman in your starting lineup. I actually had him in my starting lineup along my 2 starting running backs in my other league were Foreman and the guy from the Jets.
Michael Carter. And
it kind of played out not that bad for me there. But, and he's just not getting enough targets in the passing game. So I'm not sure if that aspect is there. So if they're playing against a competitive defense, you might want to start somebody else with more of a balanced attack if you can, but he's going to be benefiting a lot. If they're taking the lead in this game, Foreman's the guy to go. If you're getting close to 30 touches, I'm not complaining there. DJ Moore for the Panthers, probably the only other guy we need to talk about. He's back on the radar. If you're getting 11 targets as a receiver, that's something that you could have in your flex spot. This last second touchdown really helped him out. But the fact that they're going to him in those situations and the fact that they're giving him 11 targets, I think it's pretty safe to say you can help with a positive outlook. You can definitely put him in your flex, maybe your wide receiver too, moving forward. Mariota is the other person we need to talk about from the other side of the field. He's just a bye week fill-in at this point. I'm never going to start him, but I feel like it needs to be talked about because people are going to start him, mainly because of the solid floor due to his running game.
He's QB8. Yeah. Are you surprised? He's this far into the season. He is quarterback 8 in fantasy football.
For sure. That's
insanity.
Yeah, that's the solid floor, right? That's the solid floor he provides. But you have to be ready for some sort of mess up, and that's up to you to decide if you're ready for that type of letdown when it inevitably will and may happen. Huntley and Algier combo is very annoying because if it was just one of them getting all these touches, we'd be talking about a top 10 possibility. But they're splitting it right up the middle. Huntley had 16 for 91 rushing yards. Algier had 14 carries for 39 yards. Didn't look that great, but he was involved in the passing game when Huntley was not. And Algier got 3 for 3 for 46 yards and a touchdown. So yeah, they're using him right up the middle. I think they're just kind of going with this balanced attack until Patterson comes because no one's really running away with the lead. I know Huntley had more rushing touches, but I think Algier is the safer play here just because of the passing down work and because he is the more explosive guy. So that's that for those running backs. And Kyle Pitts, I think, you can probably throw him up there and just flip a coin once again. He led with 9 targets for the team. He went 5 for 9 for 80 yards and a touchdown. Some of those passes, they were just so bad. If they were even remotely close to Pitts, he could have turned this into probably a 120-yard maybe a 2-touchdown day. But that is just something that'll never go away.
It's just so the story of Kyle Pitts, man. Did you start it? Did you start him this week?
I started Dolchich this week, but I'm probably going to go back to starting Pitts just because it's the pain of, I don't know what it is. It's like a sadistic thing that I just like, I want to see what the possibility is, but if Dolchich continues to give me a solid floor, I may just go with that, but the tight end position, if you don't have one of the best ones, I kind of like to shoot for the fences. And I honestly don't know. I wish I could give you a good answer about what's going to happen moving forward. I just don't know.
Pitts, like if you're a Pitts owner, he seems like the classic guy that's, continuing to make you bash your brain against the wall because you start him, and he sucks. And then you're like, you know what? Enough is enough. I need to make a change. And then the weeks you make the change and decide not to start him, he goes off. Like I would, if I had Pitts, I would be very, very, that would be the case for me. I would bench him and he would go off and I would start him and he'd have 0.
Right. I sent everybody in my league, every single person trade offer with Waller and Pitts and a running back. I had Gus Edwards, so I sent everybody a trade. I even lowballed myself to get rid of those two. Nobody bid.
Nobody wants that torture, man. It's like Chauvet's problem of having too many good players. Sometimes you start all the wrong ones and you don't want to be in that situation.
Right.
But would you want to be in that position if you just beat the number one guy and now you're number one in the league with this shitty situation? So it's like, what do you do? This is the enigma of fantasy football. It's like I have one of the best teams I've ever had in our league and not doing too hot, but I have this team where I'm debating. I wasted my 3rd round pick, my 4th round pick, and my 5th round pick, and I'm sitting at number 1. So it's like, make it make sense.
Yeah, it's got to be fun to win the matchup with Michael Carter and Foreman as your running backs.
It's been like that all year.
Guys, you just pick up from the free agency, and now they're just doing well. Nice. Cool. Next up, we've got the Chicago Bears at Dallas Cowboys, and it was all Dallas Cowboys offense here, firing on all cylinders. Dak Prescott had probably one of his better games this year. And the guy to highlight is Tony Pollard, who had 3 touchdowns, given that Zeke wasn't out. We talked about how he should be the RB1. I don't think people are still convinced after 3 touchdowns and all of those yards that he had, and in terms of like the Cowboys fans here, but that's who the guy that's who the RB1 should be. But I'm sure they'll probably try to put him more in offensive plays to get him involved and things like that. But he had a solid game. I mean, it wasn't just like red zone carries. Like he was when the game was getting close, Pollard had like a huge 50-yard rush on 3rd and 1 and ended up scoring a touchdown on that play. So all in all, CeeDee Lamb did really well. Dalton Schultz on offense was being more incorporated and getting targets. I'm a Dalton Schultz holder, so I was very happy to see that he's kind of getting back into the action, coming back from his injuries and all that. Bears, I thought they played pretty well. Justin Fields is looking like a solid starter week in, week out because of what he can do with the legs. He evaded the pocket as much as he could. Cole, he passed the ball. He got threw a touchdown to Cole Kmet, which was impressive to see. But Justin Fields just gets those fantasy points. He does it with his legs. That's kind of what I was hoping from the beginning of the year, and it's kind of cool to see that it's interesting to see that it's kind of coming into fruition now. But they run the ball. Bears run often, and they ran 43 out of 61 times. Khalil Herbert got a touchdown, who is kind of like the Pollard situation, I feel like a little bit with David Montgomery, kind of like fighting for that RB1 spot where David Montgomery, he had that fumble that caused the defensive touchdown to Micah Parsons and a bonehead play, by the way, by Justin Fields, who leaps over Micah Parsons. Why didn't he just touch him? And which brings me to the next point. Dallas's defense was very susceptible to that rushing attack from the Bears. They get turnovers, they got the fumble, they got an interception, but I think that moving forward, offenses are going to try to scheme more to running the ball against this Dallas defense. If it wasn't for that touchdown that Micah Parsons had on defense, like you're not going to be happy with starting Cowboys defense and only giving you like 2 or 3 points this week against the Chicago Bears. So I think that they kind of got bailed out from the fantasy standpoint. But just look out for more rushing attack against the Cowboys, because that defense on rush defense is a little bit suspect for me. But the best offense beats the best defense most of the time. So Cowboys with the better offense is just corralled and defeated the Bears, and that's the reason they won this game.
Yeah, I mean, we do, Shova, you and I talked about it in the preview episode. How do you neutralize a pass rush? You run the football, and that's what they did. They ran the football really, really well. The Cowboys' bread and butter is pressuring the quarterback, and that pressure allows them to play that man coverage on the outside and get those turnovers, right? So if you're not throwing the football, obviously there's no sacks to be had. There's no turnovers to be had. So yeah, the one weakness I would agree with you from the linebacker core is running the football. But fantasy wise, maybe the Cowboys will be in trouble. But now with Dak back, and if this offense is clicking, the other teams can't just run the football. Like the Bears were very content running the football, but losing the game by 20 points. So it's like, yeah, you guys had great rushing numbers, but you weren't competitive in the football game. So, yeah, if you're running the ball early, running it effectively, and then you take a lead, the game script is completely different. But Dallas can continue to do what they do. And until they're down, or until a situation presents itself where a team they're playing against is winning and running the ball effectively, I'm still starting the Cowboys defense pretty much week in and week out, unless they're playing like Philadelphia or something, just because, again, turnover probability is really high. And when teams are passing the football, there's not a better team, in my opinion, that can sack the quarterback right now. That takes us to Detroit, where the Lions were hosting the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins cover the spread, 3.5 points, over 51.5 cashes. A lot of overs this week in a year where we've seen a ton of unders. 31-27 final. Miami is now 5-3. Detroit, all the storyline, the hard knocks, the Dan Campbell, the crying. Oh, is this the year? They might be second in the division. Well, no, they're 1-6 and they still suck. So Detroit is still where they belong, and they traded away one of their best players in Hawkinson. So make that make sense. It is officially Tua time, guys. I am aboard the Tua train, and it's not because Tua is an amazing quarterback, because the advanced numbers tell you that he's not. But Tua plays with the two scariest receivers, the scariest dynamic duo in terms of receiving core in the entire NFL. So when you have two of the fastest receivers in all of football that, you just put the ball in their hands and they make magic happen, it doesn't matter. And Tua is great at making decisions. He's really, really accurate with the football, so he doesn't need that arm strength anymore. He can throw the dump offs. He can throw the slants. 382 yards passing for Tua, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, that is a phenomenal fantasy day, and just a day overall. Tyreek Hill feasting, 12 catches, 188 yards. Waddle, 8 catches, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns. Those guys, as long as all 3 of those guys are on the field, they're automatic starts, in my opinion. Raheem Mostert, 14 carries, 64 yards, more of a slower day for him just because the passing game was so formidable. Now they have Jeff Wilson to spell Mostert, so they have another weapon that they can use at their disposal. Mike Gesicki grittying his way for another touchdown, 3 catches, 38 yards. So still doing just enough. Did not get traded, so it looks like he is going to be in their future for the second half of the season. Lions side, if you're a Swift owner, you are not happy. DeAndre Swift got the start, but he was clearly still hurt. Dan Campbell came out and said they wish he didn't carry the ball as much as he did, which is a weird thing for a coach to say after the fact. But Jamal Williams, 10 carries, 50-plus yards, and 2 touchdowns. Swift, 5 carries for 6 yards. Salvaged the day, getting in the end zone, catching 5 passes for 27 yards. And then TJ Hawkinson caught 3 balls for 80 yards, but now he's going to be catching more passes from Kirk Cousins and not Jared Goff. And the biggest benefactor of this trade, of the situation in Detroit, in my opinion, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. 7 catches, 69 yards, but now they lose one of their better pass catchers in Hawkinson, which just means more targets and more catches for St. Brown. I think that is going to kind of shoot him up for the second half of the season, even though he's already been really, really good in games that he plays. But fantasy-wise, he is the biggest benefactor of that trade. Lions continue to be bottom feeders. They are 1-6. And Miami, with this offense, man, with these receivers, I think anything is possible. So helping shore up that defense by making some trades, acquiring Bradley Chubb. Hopefully that defense can be a little bit better and not force the offense to have to score a shit ton of points as the second half of the season continues. But now Miami is 5-3. Detroit drops to 1-6 and last place in the division.
Okay, the Cardinals came to check out the Vikings situation. They were like, are you guys really for real? And let alone Cardinals got fucked up in every situation of football. Vikings covered at minus 3.5. The over hit again at 49. Final score was 26-34. They just wouldn't go away. However, this is a different Vikings team. It's very complete. I can't believe I'm saying that right now. The defense out of nowhere was containing Kyler Murray, wasn't really able to escape, wasn't able to extend on third downs. And that's all I've ever asked for, is just some help on defense. And with this offense, with, the blueprint that there's there, no one's going to go off really, besides maybe Justin Jefferson. That is really, really the only person that can really go off because of the way we play football. We still don't play to, put our feet on people's throats to like end the game. That's still not happening. And that's a concern of mine, because we're still getting maybe 2 touchdowns out of Kirk Cousins at the end of the day. We're not getting 5 touchdowns. And that's not on Kirk by any means. It's on the gameplay. He did really well. He's at this rate. If, magically there's a Super Bowl in play, every conversation's over at this point. Drew Brees is, he's playing just like Drew Brees, just doesn't have that extra Super Bowl to bump it up, but he's on pace to beat Drew Brees' records right now. If we finish the season with another, every game has a touchdown, he breaks that record as well. But that running part was what was really intriguing to me. I know both of you guys were like, Kirk Cousins just stays in the pocket, gets knocked around, kind of looks weak at the end of the day when there's too much pressure. But I mean, the dude was looking like Lamar Jackson running 18 miles per hour. Looked like the best purple jersey wearing number 8 quarterback out there this week. And, running down that right sideline, I was like, is that a running back move? It was like one of those like turny runs. It wasn't even just like a dad or a grandpa run. It looked like a legit runner. And I'm like, what the fuck? This is amazing. So that was amazing. He played lights out there. Another concern of ours is not being able to score in the third quarter, the middle quarters. Well, here's 2 touchdowns for you in the third quarter. That was amazing. One of the few teams to score a touchdown every single quarter this week. So at that rate, it's pretty unstoppable if the defense plays, serviceable like they did today. Hats off to the defense. As far as fantasy outlooks, Osborne got a touchdown, Munt got a touchdown, and Cook and Madison both got touchdowns. Cook usage was heavy, which is awesome. Everybody loves to see your star running back have a good day. He also caught some passes, which is also good. Not really common here in Minnesota. And wide receivers did typical wide receiver things. Justin Jefferson, I'm not expecting him to jump up like Hopkins and steal passes from people, but I am expecting him to have separation almost every play. He did just that. Was able to do what he typically does, create separation, get those first downs. It was awesome. Everybody did really well. The points are just going to come and go. And now with Hawkinson, you're not going to get the same points you were getting before with these receivers. It's going to be hit or miss, because you got to remember, this offense is not a 5 passing touchdown offense. It's a 2 passing touchdown a day offense and 2 rushing touchdowns, maybe 3 passing touchdowns. So now where do the touchdowns go? It just, with Hawkinson there, things kind of get a little bit murky. And then on the other side of football, Murray, 24.6 fantasy points. He ran for 36 yards, threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Those are good numbers for Murray compared to what he's been having lately. But, situational football was played really well by the Vikings. If you look at the stat sheet, all 3 of the Cardinals receivers did really well too. Hopkins just comes in and just demands targets and makes the most of it. It's really nice to see. 12 receptions for 159 yards and a touchdown. Rondale Moore was involved on that one play, kind of broke some tackles and went into the end zone. He's like 5'9". That's pretty cool for him to be doing that. 7 catches for 92 yards and a touchdown. Ertz, always solid play. 4 catches for 34 yards and a touchdown. And the running back situation, right? I don't know what to make of this Eno Benjamin situation, kind of like the Khalil Herbert situation. You kind of play him when you kind of think things are going to go well, but I think his time is likely over, especially if Connor's coming back soon. They just love using Connor. I don't really know. He scores touchdowns, right? He gets into the end zone some way, somehow. Benjamin has done enough to prove that he requires some looks. But in these opportunities he's had the last couple of games, it's just with the game script not being a run first game script, he really kind of fades away. And if Connor's coming back next week, then it's thank you for your service.
It's skull season, baby. 6-1. Who would have thought we'd be here? A chance to go 7-1 playing a, shitty Commanders team before we head into the hardest game that we've maybe seen the Vikings have in the last decade, traveling to Buffalo and taking on the Buffalo Bills. So this is the time. I've been just sleeping and dreaming about skull chance. So it's a really exciting time to be a Vikings fan, and they just added Hawkinson, which makes it all that more exciting.
Nice. Next up, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders traveling to New Orleans Saints, and the final score here was 0-24 all Saints. The over-under is 49.5, and that did not get met. final score being 24-0. But the Raiders came in this with the number 3 offense, going into the game, and they did not look like the number 3 scoring offense this week. They couldn't get anything going. Jacobs held to 43 yards on 10 carries, probably because of
looking like the normal Jacobs.
Looking like the normal Jacobs, probably because of negative game script. You're down like 17-0 leading to halftime. So you really have to pass the ball, and Derek Carr has to try to win you the ball game. And that just was not happening. Adams held down to 1 catch for 3 yards. They had a little bit of a weird situation. They tried to do this jet sweep with Devontae Adams. That didn't get anywhere. And then they tried to fake the punt, and that caused a turnover on downs, and it was just like a downhill spiral from there. Kudos to the Saints defense. They just showed up. They pressured.
Did they?
They did. They pressured Derek Carr plenty of times. They got the interception. They did for a defense that was allowing as many, like the Seahawks went crazy on the Saints, right? The Saints aren't really known for their defense, but being able to stop the Raiders offense, I think that it's got to being able to put pressure on him. That's enough to cause winning outcomes. Carr was sacked 3 times in this game, and then lastly, the scores came from the offense. So Saints offense did really well. Kamara 158 yards, 2 touchdowns. Taysom Hill, he was there causing them to move the chains on 3rd downs, getting the 1st down. That definitely helps out. He was being utilized more than he has been in the past. Outside of the Seahawks game, he kind of, after the Seahawks game, everyone was like picking up Taysom Hill and thinking they're going to start him on tight end. Then he kind of dies down. And then this week, we saw Taysom Hill being utilized a little bit more in the tight end position, catching the balls and then running as well. So, you got to like that if you still have Taysom Hill and you haven't dropped him. And then Chris Olave, 5 for 52, just a decent game. Nothing to kind of wrap home about as far as fantasy goes. But all in all, it was just all Saints offense and nothing good from the Raiders side. The only good thing maybe is Mac Hollins, 7 for 64, given that Devontae Adams was shut down. He was the only guy that kind of produced, him and maybe Moreau, their tight end. But Mac Hollins had 7 for 64. Take what you want of that. I don't know if you start him, but
you definitely don't start him. But I do have him in a couple leagues.
Never start him.
Yeah,
Devontae Adams is not going to have a stomach bug every week, and he's not going to be ill. So there's there's too many better players outside of Mac Hollins on that offense that you're going to roll the dice with Mac Hollins on any given week, especially if a team like the Raiders can score 0 points and can't get across midfield till the 4th quarter against one of the worst defenses in the league. And we've talked about it. What is the enigma with Derek Carr? What is the enigma? Why can't the Raiders take the next step? This is the Raiders in a nutshell. Just when you think number 3 offense, Josh Jacobs, career year. Wow, they have a really, really opportunistic matchup against a horrible Saints defense. Well, yeah, they're going to put up a goose egg. So this is exactly what the Vegas Raiders, the Derek Carr-led Raiders will continue to be until it's Derek Carr no more. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, the first time they got off to the other side of the field was when Derek Carr was no longer playing. The backup quarterback got them across the 50-yard line. Just let that sink in. Let that sink in.
Pathetic. Let's move on to teams that actually know how to play offense. The Patriots traveled to New York to take on the Jets. Jets were underdogs in this game at home, and Patriots won the game outright 22-17, covered the 2.5-point spread, under 40 cashes. New England is now 4-4, and the Jets dropped to 5-3. MVP of this game, Nick Folk. If you had him, 22 fantasy points by your kicker. Couldn't be me. I had Evan McPherson, who just missed 2 extra points in a field goal. So kick God or whatever his nickname used to be, that all went away. And the minute I drafted that guy, Ramondre Stevenson, RB1, it is clear as day. 16 carries, 71 yards, 7 catches is something that as a Stevenson owner, or if you're a Stevenson owner, you love to see. 7 catches, 72 yards. We talked about Jacoby Myers. He is a solid flex, maybe even wide receiver 2 at this stage. 9 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Man, I have seen some pretty porous quarterback play, but the 2 throws that Zach Wilson made for interceptions in the second half have to be some of the worst throws I've ever seen an NFL quarterback make. Just absolutely horrible, right? The first one, he thought he threw it away, but clearly didn't throw it away. It was still in the field of play and got intercepted. And the second one, man, I mean, that looked like some high school quarterback just lobbing it up a lame duck in the middle of a field with nobody there. Again, some of the worst throws I've seen. He ends up having a decent stat line, thrown for over 300 yards, but those 2 interceptions provide to be very, very costly in a game the Jets had an absolute chance to win. I mean, the problem was there was no run game with Breece Hall being hurt. Michael Carter, seven carries for 26 yards. They traded for James Robinson, 5 carries for 17 yards. So not a lot of running game going on for them against that stout Patriots front. The two nice things to see is, are the Wilsons finally developing that chemistry? Is Zach Wilson finally understanding that Garrett Wilson was the top wide receiver selected, or I guess maybe not the first, Drake London was, but one of the top receivers and projected to be the best receiver in this rookie class, finally getting the work he deserves. 6 catches, 115 yards, and Gronklin, baby. 6 catches, 79 yards, and 2 touchdowns for the Gronklin, and 10 targets, led the team. So that is nice to see, especially when these players had produced when Zach Wilson was not the quarterback and Joe Flacco was the quarterback. So we're hoping Zach Wilson took a page out of Flacco's playbook and decided that he actually has weapons there. And the one weapon he has that the Jets hate, he hates, and the entire team hates, but they refuse to play him or trade him, is Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore deserves better. 10 offensive snaps that this dude saw the field. I thought the post-game presser was spot on. Did you guys hear them ask, hey, how do you feel like your chemistry with Zach Wilson is? And he's like, I don't know. He doesn't throw me the football. Best answer I have heard. Why is that guy not getting the ball? Why is that guy not seeing the field? It makes absolutely no sense. Robert Saleh, I need some answers, because right now Elijah Moore is in like Jets prison, and he does not deserve that. He deserves better. But the Patriots win this game. Jets still control, leading. They're second in the division behind Buffalo at 5-3. Patriots now 4-4.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Zach Wilson sucks. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, he's so bad. This is he's probably I would rather have Justin Fields on my team than have Zach Wilson on my team right now.
Agreed.
Zach Wilson's just so bad. And the good thing is they're looking long-term. What they didn't know is that they could have made it to the playoffs this year. I don't think the outlook was very smart. Whoever is in charge of that part of that organization needs to be fired, needs to have a stern talking to or something, because they had potential. They had really good potential here. Joe Flacco came out and just made all these receivers look like Hall of Famers. And all of a sudden, Zach Wilson comes in. And he's like, "Hey guys, like I'm still trying. I'm still trying out here." And he's got those flashes of Mahomes. You see these evading that he does, but the outcome of the evading is just like really bad every time. Not once has he turned one of those into like, "Oh my God, this guy's amazing." Like we saw a lot of that in college. But it hasn't really worked out. And I think that, the good thing is he has the rest of the season to do this. I don't see them benching Zach Wilson, no matter how bad he plays, which is an odd thing to say. They're 5-3, and I think they could have been like 7-1 or something if Flacco was playing, which is a really weird thing to say. They have a really good defense, but this is just what they're going with. They're like, Zach Wilson is the future. We're going to ride with him until something bad happens to him or something.
Yeah, I don't know how many more of those interceptions that they need to see before they realize maybe he's not the answer.
Yeah. Steelers visited the Eagles, and I think they would rather just turn the flight back around and go home and just call it quits. But they fought pretty hard. Philadelphia covered -11, over hit at 43. Final score was 13-35. Pittsburgh is down to 2-6. Philadelphia is now 7-0, only undefeated team in the league. They never trailed this whole game. They are also one of the other teams that scored a touchdown every quarter this week. AJ Brown, man, I'm getting PTSD just saying this word.
Monster, dude.
Yeah.
He had a chance for like 5 touchdowns.
He did. They just kind of didn't really keep playing hard after the first half. They're like, okay, we can just run the ball and kind of end this game. But AJ Brown, I had him last year. He had like one game like this, and every other game was really average. Hopefully he keeps up this hard work, because this is what you expect from a player like AJ Brown. He's huge. There's really, double teams. Are they really going to work if you place the ball at the right spot? And Hurts is on fire right now, making really accurate throws. And, this is what you want. This is what you want to see from these two. And AJ Brown, 6 catches, 156 yards, 3 touchdowns at half. And Hurts with 285 yards, 4 touchdowns thrown. That's his career high, which is an odd thing to say. But, now we're seeing more of his lack of limitation. If he can do this with a game script that didn't even need for him to throw for half the game, This man is special. He only ran 2 times for 10 yards. So that tells you everything you need to know. They took this game very, they stuck with their game plan, and he didn't really have to scramble out of the pocket to do anything special. Sanders also had only 9 rushes for 78 yards, but he also ended up getting in the end zone. And God is somebody that doesn't get enough credit. 6 catches for 64 yards, solid floor always. Devonta Smith is the afterthought in this offense, unless they're in a competitive game. If you look at their schedule, there's really not. They have the second easiest schedule the rest of the way. Devonta Smith is not going to be a benefactor of that. There will be some games where you're like, oh my God, look at Devonta Smith, he's so good. And then the thing is that there's just no need to force feed him when you have such a good game plan. So he's going to be a risky play every week moving forward. And the Steelers, man, I just pray JJ Watt comes back soon, because they are a completely different team with JJ Watt. Without JJ Watt, they're 32nd.
TJ Watt, yeah.
TJ Watt.
They could use JJ Watt though. They could use all the Watts. They could use all the Watts on defense.
One of the Watts scored a touchdown, but maybe he should play defensive end. I don't know. Mike Tomlin, is the only reason that we're even having any conversation about being competitive. He just has a way of figuring things out. But with the way Najee Harris is not being able to produce right now, I'm not sure if Tomlin's going to be able to figure this one out. It's going to be pretty amazing if you guys can shove it. If you guys can get back to 500 to see that Mike Tomlin streak happen.
Yeah, I mean, Akil Witherspoon, man, that was just embarrassing. But it wasn't just him. It was Terrell Edmonds, too, getting and Fitzpatrick. All these guys that you expect to perform. A.J. Brown was like, yeah, you ain't shit. And just went up and got all, just blew past them. And Najee Harris doing too much dancing. Jalen Warren comes in, he's looking like more efficient. Just get the first down, dude. What are you doing? So yeah, you're right though. TJ Watt coming back will definitely help out that defense and allow them to play a little bit more man. And hopefully this guy that's coming from the Commanders, he's a terrible zone defense guy, but he's a better man-to-man guy. So we need all the help. William Jackson, we need all the help we can get from cornerback. So it's just we're probably not going to make the playoffs, but I definitely want to see some improvements. And Matt Canada, everyone, just all 3 fronts of the team needs to be better.
The good thing about having Mike Tomlin as your coach, and we have already talked about this early in the season, and that's why they went to Pickett, is he never waits too long to make changes. If he feels like changes need to be made, he will make changes because he wants to win. And I think one of those first changes that you could see in the upcoming weeks is the whole Najee Warren thing, right? I mean, I was all aboard the Najee train, but just seeing he's so much in his head when he touches the ball, because I feel like he's trying to do 5 different things at once versus just run straight. And that video that I sent you guys, that play where he catches that swing pass on 3rd and 2, when he catches the ball, and in that camera angle, there's nobody between him and that first down line, right? So you're like, okay, easy first down. And somehow he gets no yards on that play. And I think that is, in a nutshell, the problem with Najee Harris right now is he's just trying to do too much. And he does not have enough straight line speed to dance around like that and then try to show that burst. So he just has to get up and down and north and south and not east and west. But I think, again, being a Steelers fan right now is not pleasant, but I think the one good thing is you have a head coach that is not going to let this just completely shipwreck, and you're not going to finish the season 2-15. I can guarantee you that much. So Tomlin will make the changes where they're necessary. Like you said, the streak may not stay alive, but you're going to see a team that's still going to be competitive. And the last thing I'll add is, Fitzpatrick, all those guys having bad days are just a product of the fact that front 4 can't get any pressure. So when you can't get pressure, Jalen Ramsey's not going to be able to cover a guy for 15 seconds if nobody's getting pressure, right? So I think it's more so about the front 4 not getting pressure. And I talked about TJ Watt. He's an Aaron Donald type impact player. So yeah, getting TJ Watt, the defense will look dynamically different.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts had an outstanding game. He was making passes that I did not think Jalen Hurts could make passes. So there was that too.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have the Tennessee Titans that traveled to Houston to face the Texans. The final score was Titans winning 17-10. The over-under was 40.5. That did not get met. So total was 27 points. But yeah, this game was all Derrick Henry, the king, 190 yards after contact. And if you're watching the game, the first 2 quarters, you're like, oh, Houston's kind of competitive. They're getting some making the Tennessee Titans punt the ball. But then when it was time for Derrick Henry to do Derrick Henry things, it was all That's all he did. And Malik Willis got the start, but he only had 10 attempts because the game plan was just run the ball. Houston Texans came into this game as one of the poor rushing defenses in the league, allowing like 160 yards per game. So that was the game plan for the Titans, and it worked. They didn't put up a lot of points, but enough points, 17 points altogether to end up winning the game. The Texans, that 10 points is kind of misleading because that was like late in the fourth quarter. Everyone's like kind of like chilling out, not even trying, and they get a touchdown with like 2 minutes remaining, something like that. So really should have been 17-3. But the Texans just don't have enough offensive power outside of Brandon Cooks and Dameon Pierce, and they missed Nico Hollins, who was out. So really nothing to work off of. And when the Titans stopped Dameon Pierce from attacking on them, it was having Davis Mills trying to beat you and defeat you, and Davis Mills, I don't think he's going to be the quarterback of the future there. He doesn't seem to be. He just not.
He doesn't elevate the team. He's just there. He's like a body.
Right. Last year, I was like, when they defeated the Rams and they had the 3 touchdowns, like, okay, this guy could probably be something. But really, there's nothing to be excited about. Not a guy that you want to have your franchise grow around. So they're probably going to look elsewhere after the end of this year. And then kudos to Titans defense: 3 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 6 QB hits, and key stops on third down, stopping Dameon Pierce, stopping Davis Mills from getting a sack on third down. Didn't allow them to move the chains on those key possessions. So that allowed them to win the game. Titans win 17-10.
Easy game script. Another thing we talked about. What did I say, Shovit? Derrick Henry might have the best game of his career or season. And what did he do? He had a pretty damn good game. Another guy I wish would have a Derrick Henry type game, but he just decides that he doesn't want to do that. Jonathan Taylor and the Colts are hosting the Commanders this week. Washington wins this game on the road 17-16, cover the 3-point dog spread, under 39. Commanders somehow 4-4 on the season. Indianapolis is now 3-4-1. Taylor Heineke gets to add another pair of Jordans to his collection. I'm sure you guys have heard of that. Every time he beats a team, he orders a new pair of Jordans in their colors. So now he's going to get a brand new, fresh pair of blue and white Jordans. I think that's some baller ass shit. I'm not going to lie, because Taylor Heineke knows he's probably not a quarterback that's going to be, the quarterback of any team moving forward, or the guy. So he just is doing what he can with the opportunities that are given. And we talk about it. He's got the tenacity. And I feel like this whole Jordan shoes thing it just fits his personality so well. So I'm very, very happy for the guy. Had a pretty good game, right? 279 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, did throw an interception, but he also used his legs a little bit, 6 for 29, and also ran one in. Their offense is kind of in shambles. And the one, kind of bright spot is Antonio Gibson, believe it or not. Brian Robinson is going to be an afterthought. He is purely a guy that is going to get rushing touches if they're winning the game. So if they're not, he is not even going to sniff the field. So he is a guy that you're probably very, very unlikely to start, because the Commanders aren't going to be winning very many football games. So I think they're going to be behind a lot. And that's where Gibson and McKissick come in. Gibson had 7 carries for 19 yards, but he caught 7 passes for 58 yards and a touchdown. And the one guy that Heineke loves is TMC. Terry McLaurin, 6 catches for 113 yards. So every time Heineke is a quarterback, McLaurin seems to do well. So that is one connection that they have established. And the Colts are just a mess, man. Sam Ehlinger gets his first start. He was so-and-so. No interceptions. Did have a fumble loss. Was sacked twice. And Jonathan Taylor, I think at this point, might be the biggest first-round bust this year. I mean, 16 carries, 76 yards, did lose a fumble, was injured for a portion of the game, and then came back in. And I think on the outside, Pittman is still the wide receiver 1, 7 catches, 53 yards on 9 targets. But with Ehlinger at the helm, how much do you really trust any of the pass catchers on the Colts anymore? Pierce had 3 catches for 65 yards. Campbell, after having 2 really nice weeks, has 2 catches for 43 yards. So I think Ehlinger has not elevated the receiving core against a pretty bad Commanders defense. The Colts offense continues to leave something to be desired. I'm continuing to just be a insanity man, putting Jonathan Taylor in my starting lineup every week, hoping that he finally pops off. And he's not. He's just absolutely not popping off. Now, they did trade away Naheem Hines this week that we talked about. So I don't know if that means Taylor's going to get all of the pass catching work, or if they're going to start utilizing Zach Moss more in running situations and actually use Deion Jackson more. That remains to be seen. But right now, there's not a lot to love about Indianapolis.
Yeah. So Jonathan Taylor owners, Najee Harris owners, all are in that same boat. But more so Jonathan Taylor owners being the number one.
Yeah. I mean, I just think back to what I said on draft day, and I'm like, if you want the safe bet, the surefire safe pick, it's Jonathan Taylor. If you want the guy with all the upside, but there is the injury risk, it's CMC. And I waited till the last second to make my decision, ended up being safe and playing it safe and taking Jonathan Taylor because he's the safe choice. He's the safest choice that's leading me to 0-8. Right now, if I had CMC, I'd probably have different results. So I'm kicking myself over it, but what can you do?
One last thing. I remember last week I said, I think that, given that Ellinger runs out of the pocket and Matt Ryan, when he gets sacked, he fumbles the ball and Ellinger comes in, gets a sack and also fumbles the ball. This is like
some things never change.
Yeah.
I mean, he is learning. He is back up to Matt Ryan. So everything he's learning from Matt Ryan. So he's learning the bad things too.
Yeah. Being placed in a shitty situation is never good. And that team is just going to crumble here shortly. Speaking of teams crumbling, the Rams got visited too by the 49ers. 49ers covered at -1.5. The over hit at 42.5. These type of games are always fun to watch because it's like a what's it called? Like the young grasshopper versus his sensei matchups.
Yeah.
And regular season, Kyle Shanahan has Sean McVay's number. He totally has a number. But when it comes to the playoffs, it's a different story so far. But San Francisco is now 4-4. LA Rams are 3-4. Final score was 31-14, like I mentioned. Big question for me is why Cooper Kupp was still playing late into the game. That is your only source of points, and you decided to play him down 3 scores with little to no time left, and he got hurt. So that's one of the biggest boo-boos you do not make as a coach, and he made it. And it sucks. Right? We don't know how long Cooper Kupp is out for with this injury. It seems very minor, but a minor injury to your only source of points is a big deal. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. He still ended up with 18.9 fantasy points on 8 catches, 79 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Who else would you start on this team? Absolutely nobody. So let's not even worry about talking about anybody else here. Garoppolo ended up with 17.7 points. Why am I even mentioning that? Well, that's because he has a nice floor. He is more handsome Kirk Cousins, if that's even possible. But 17.7 fantasy points. He's been averaging around that, plus and minus 2 for the last 4 or 5 games, I believe. So he's a nice fill-in, not somebody you want to piggyback off of for the rest of the season. Like players like Tua, which have a much, much higher ceiling where you can sometimes give you 30 points plus Garoppolo is not going to do that for you. CMC had the best day of his life as far as enjoying football goes. He got to throw a touchdown pass, got to catch a touchdown pass. He got to run a touchdown pass in. It's like human joystick. He just did everything, and he did everything really well. 18 rushes for 94 yards and a touchdown, 8 receptions for 55 yards and a touchdown. And he also threw a pass for over 30 yards for a touchdown. We're finally getting to see what CMC can do, and it's just going to get better moving forward. It's going to get so much better that they just decided to trade their backup running back to another team. They're like, fuck it, we'll just see what happens. They're very much in a win now mode. So another thing to mention is, as a passer, CMC outscored in fantasy points to an actual quarterback, Derek Carr. He outscored Jonathan Taylor, and then he outscored Senor Jefe, Justin Jefferson, and as a receiver. So he just, it was a very impressive game. It's like starting all 3 of them, but in one person. You're gonna enjoy the rest of the season. Sandman is about to reap a lot of benefits from this CMC situation. Ayuk is the other guy here with Kittle that you're gonna start on this team as long as Debo is out. Debo should be coming back, but if he's not coming back, Ayuk is a solid flex. 6 catches for 81 yards and touchdown was what we saw this week. And Kittle only 3 catches, but he ended up rolling into the end zone. Still a risky start. Be very cautious. Another one of those if you enjoy pain, you're just going to continue to start Kittle because we're still not seeing like, here you go, here's 12 targets for you, Kittle, because you're so fucking amazing. We're just not going to see that.
Yeah, I wonder how serious that Cup injury is, because I wonder if Van Jefferson could be a good pickup, like a boomer or bust kind of player to get you some touchdowns.
Or do you finally go back to the well that is Allen Robinson?
Yeah, that well's dried. I'm not fishing anywhere near. I'm not getting any water from that well.
Next up, we've got the Giants at Seattle against the Seahawks. The final score 13-27. Seattle Seahawks come up with a win here. That puts them to 5-3. And this was the only game that two teams with a winning record were playing against each other this week, which was surprising.
The game of the week. This was the game of the week.
Yeah, this is the game of the week. Although the Fox had the 49ers and it was our game of the week. Fox had 49ers and Rams as the game of the week. But Seattle came in and got the job done. Their offensive line, Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross are rookie tackles that are coming in and allowing Kenneth Walker to have a solid season, allowing Geno Smith to be protected, and that just makes him become more of an accurate passer like he is. And so Geno Smith was hitting all the right cylinders, throwing touchdown to Metcalf, throwing touchdown to Tyler Lockett late, even though Lockett kind of had a drop early on in the game. He came back and was able to get a touchdown late in the game. But kudos to the Seattle defense as well, being able to stop Saquon Barkley. I think that was the game plan in this game. Stop the run threat that Barkley has, with limiting him to 53 yards on 20 carries, which is less than 3 yards per carry, and making Daniel Jones having to defeat you. And Danny Dimes, when you're not throwing dimes, you're not going to win games. 17 of 31, 176 yards. And his offensive line didn't help either. Sacked 5 times as well. And rookie spotlight here, Tariq Woolen of the Seahawks. This is his fifth straight game of under 50 yards in completion. So ball hawk, or I don't know what you call a cornerback that's like doing really well, but or just
shut down. He's not completely shutting down, but yeah, I mean, for a 5th round cornerback, he is definitely outperforming his draft value.
I think does he not have the highest PFF rating for a cornerback right now?
He is one of them. He's I was just thinking that. I don't know if he's top, but he's definitely.
I think he was number 1 as of 2 weeks ago, but I don't know how he did the last 2 weeks.
Okay. I mean, just look at this team, like the Seahawks, with their Abraham Lucas actually scores a higher grade PFF wise than Charles Cross, who is the first round pick for the Seahawks. And they have this rookie who's playing cornerback, playing lights out. So everything's just kind of working really well for these Seahawks, allowing them to win games. And Geno Smith is playing lights out as well. So all Seahawks here, and Giants, you live and die with that defense. The defense is pretty good and causes turnovers. Just wasn't doing that against a better Seahawks team.
Did you guys see the post-game presser with Geno, DK, and Lockett? And Lockett was like, it's crazy how much success you can have when nobody cares about getting the glory, right? Nobody cares about being the person that gets the praise and all this stuff, and everybody works as a team. And in my head, I'm thinking, who could he possibly be throwing? I'm like, who could he possibly be throwing shade at? And it's Russell Wilson, but that's so weird because I feel like our perception of Russell Wilson has always been like, oh, he's such a team first guy. Like he's a great teammate and all this crap. And I don't know, man. I mean, are we finally starting to unravel what, Russell Wilson behind the scenes actually is?
He reminds me of Georgie. You guys remember Georgie playing basketball?
Yes.
Like such a standout guy, goes to church, does all this, nice guy, nice. But, when you're in the heat of the moment, the true nature of the guy comes out and you're like, maybe be a little nicer to me. I don't know. And I think the players will definitely back that up as far as Russell Wilson goes. Because, like Marshawn said, like Richard Sherman said, it's hard to even contact him. You have to go through his agent to reach out to him. And Marshawn's like, man, I'm not about to like text somebody and like get a response from their manager. Dude, like it's that type of stuff. It's like, what are you doing?
That just adds more to my conspiracy theory show from last week that the dude is actually a robot. He is not a real human being. He is just operated by somebody else. He has like 7 catchphrases. Let's ride. Like he says the same 7 things. You're just pushing a button of what he's going to say. And yeah, how weird is it that there's no direct contact between his teammates and him? Like you're having to go through a third party agent for your own teammate. That's like your quarterback, that all that's super, super weird. So I don't know. I don't know if, we're finally figuring out who Russell Wilson truly is, but it's not who I thought he was.
All of this is because he's losing games. He wins games. He connects with his receivers. It's going to be fine. It's all blow over.
Yeah, we're waiting.
There's still time for Russ to come back and be the Russ that we.
Is there though? Like that so. in that division? In that division, you think? Okay, because I'm thinking wild card, and there's a couple of teams in the AFC which are probably already established the wild card role, and that's going to be the Dolphins. Like, are they better than the Dolphins? Absolutely not. And there's going to be 2 more spots there, and I would still take the Chargers as bad as they are to maybe slip into that role once some of these players get healthy. I don't know. I'm not as confident as you anymore about this Russell Wilson situation.
I liked what I saw from him last game. I did. As far as the, just being able to put points on the board, being able to, if they had Dolchik from the beginning of the season, I think they would have been a different team as well. So I think all of that.
So he's really the MVP then. It's not Russ is not the
1.5.
Russ is not teetering into the winning. It's Greg Dolchich is the X factor of that offense.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at the Broncos as a whole and not just Russ. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's the Jaguars, man. 21 points against the Jaguars when you have to take it to like last second stuff. That's not a good game in my eyes. No.
Yeah, we'll see. I've already dropped Russell Wilson. I'm sure a lot of fantasy owners have already dropped him. I find it hard to believe that you're going to be able to start him unless, again, it's a really, really random week where there's a shit ton of buys. Like maybe this upcoming week where 6 teams are on buys and you're super desperate, but otherwise he is a tough cookie.
Yeah, I mean, definitely startable, right? Like you're probably going to get 15 to 20 points. Like definitely startable if you want that kind of start. But is it somebody you're going to be like, all right, I got Russell Wilson, I'm happy now? Definitely not.
No, I know I'm getting nitpicky here, but it's because I probably had him and drafted him and I'm still salty. But like where we've seen Russell Wilson drop 20 points one time this year. Everything else has been just absolutely awful, right? So his outside of the 26.98 point game he had 17 week 1, 11, 9, 9, 13, 13. So yeah, I mean, like if you're content with the floor of maybe double digits, maybe, but you'd have to guess right. And the matchup would have to be like the Houston Texans or the Saints or somebody like the Seahawks or so you thought till they decided to play really good defense that he would have to probably go off for another 20 points. So again, you're banking on a coin flip at this point with Russell Wilson, which coming into the season, we thought he was, still pretty surefire. Sunday Night Football in Buffalo. The Bills were hosting Green Bay Packers. Packers came into this game as 11-point underdogs, the largest spread in Aaron Rodgers' history. He did cover the spread, good for him, but they still lost 27-17 final, under 47.5 cashes. Green Bay now drops to 3-5, 3.5 games out of first place in the NFC North. Buffalo is now sitting at 6-1. Buffalo started hot. They started hot and they made this game look like it was going to be a shootout and they were just going to run away with it. But the second half was not the same game. They still controlled it though. Josh Allen had a pretty human game. I mean, 218 yards passing, 2 touchdowns through 2 interceptions, 6 carries, 49 yards. Stephon Diggs is going to continue to be the number 1 guy there. I don't think anybody doubts that. 6 catches, 108 yards and a touchdown. Gabriel Davis, we talked about it. He is officially, and he always has been, a boomer bust guy. He has his bust week, 2 catches, 35 yards. The way I can summarize Gabriel Davis from a fantasy perspective is he is the perfect cherry on top to an already stacked fantasy team where if he has a dud week, you're not worried because the rest of your guys are all A+ stud players, but he could have a boom week that will 100% win you the week, no questions asked, right? So he is the perfect complement as a flex, but if he's your wide receiver 2 or anything higher than that, which he should never be, then you're probably in trouble. Aaron Rodgers, 203 yards passing, 2 touchdowns and an interception. I think we can probably put to bed the argument that Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, who's better, who's worse. I'm pretty sure Aaron Jones is the better player there. 20 carries, 143 yards, 4 catches, 14 yards. When he runs the football, he shoots out of a cannon. A.J. Dillon cannot say the same about himself. 10 carries, 54 yards, caught 1 ball for 9 yards. Receiving core, again, continues to be an enigma. We thought we found something in Romeo Doubs. he kind of tapered off a couple weeks, but he finds the end zone here, 4 catches, 62 yards and a touchdown. The one other guy that gets in the end zone, 7th round receiver, Samaji Toure, 1 catch, 37 yards and a touchdown. So Green Bay still searching for a true number 1, and they do nothing about it on trade day. They trade for absolutely nobody. So it looks like they are still rolling with the same players that they have on their roster, and they are officially in trouble. 3-5, 3.5 games out of first place in the division. The NFC wildcard spot is probably not going to be theirs for the taking either, because there are 2 divisions that don't have a team under 500, the NFC East being one of them, right? So I think Green Bay is officially in panic mode. I don't care if Aaron Rodgers says relax, because they don't have time to relax. They should officially hit the panic button. Buffalo 6-1, doing Buffalo things and winning this game by 10.
It's really funny because I'm kind of in the same situation as Green Bay, but I'm also not in panic mode as far as our fantasy situation goes, right? So I'm wondering if they're going with the same thing. Like, we have a good lineup. Why are the lineups not hitting? But, you know, their receivers, I just don't know what they're thinking there. They need some serious receiver help. So last game we have is the Bengals visiting the Browns on Halloween night. 13-32 was the final score. Browns won this. Cleveland covered, obviously, +3, and there was a push at 45. So Cincinnati falls to 4-4. Cleveland is now 3-5. Cleveland was kind of an afterthought with even with Brissett kind of coming in, and just watching Brissett enjoy the game of football will make any football fan happy. Cincinnati, on the other hand, it's just, it's just so crazy, man. Like, one day Joe Burrow goes for 35 points. One day Joe Burrow looks like there's like a hit for him and there's people just trying to kill him. And you just never know when you're going to get that Burrow. It's really odd because against a team like Cleveland, we did not expect this. You know, we did not expect this much pressure. I expected some pressure because you're going to get those Garrett visits to the backfield, but not this often from everybody. So, and then without Chase, there's no escape the route there. So they were screwed from the beginning. It was just a bad situation, especially because the Browns are running the ball so efficiently. And Cooper, so let's talk about some fantasy implications here. And Cooper goes off every time he's at home. If you look at the stat sheet, he has a touchdown literally every game he's at home. Shaping up to be a pretty nice year. Kind of started off bad after throwing a pick. His pick was worse than Zach Wilson's. It's pretty close, but it was one of the worst picks I've ever seen. He went 5 for 7, 5 catches on 7 targets for 131 yards and a touchdown, and a lot of third down looks, and he was able to be successful on those. So it's always a nice sight. Brissett had a nice day again, 20.32 fantasy points. He had 1 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown, a lot of conversions on those sneaks. He is one of the best at doing that at this point in this season, at least. Chubb doing Chubb things, 23 rushes for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. Hunt is secondary. He's an afterthought at this point. They did use him quite a bit, so that kind of let me know the trades maybe weren't happening, and not sure what's going to happen here. It's just going to be the same situation moving forward. Hunt will maybe on a good day run into the end zone on a passing play or some sort of goal line mode situation, but this is Chubb's backfield. On the Bengals side of things, Burrow had 13 points. You know, that looked like a really terrible game, but late touchdowns by Boyd and Higgins kind of salvaged him there. He got murdered all day. Not really sure if you're going to use this game as a reason for why Burrow had a bad fantasy day. That was a difficult situation for any quarterback. Mixon, you know, just Mixon. This is the Mixon
Just
life.
classic Joe Mixon.
That's what you sign up for. 8 rushes for 27 yards, but he got 7 passes for 32 to salvage. Salvage is the name of the game. And when you have Mixon, you'll have some good days. You'll have some salvage days. And some days you're just going to be like, what? Does this guy even know how to play football? Higgins, 3 catches on 49. 3 catches for 49 yards and a touchdown. Really nice mossing situation there. Boyd, 3 catches for 38 yards and a touchdown. It was a deflection that landed in his hands, but even if it wasn't deflected, it looked like it was still coming his way. And then Hayden Hurst, another one of those Goddard situations, poor man's Goddard. He's starting to kind of establish a role on that offense, especially with no Chase. I expect a nice little floor for Hurst moving forward.
Now, Andy, you guys know Andy, right? He was over and he was playing against Nick Chubb, and he had Tyler Boyd on his team. And up until the end of the first quarter, I think Nick Chubb had like 0.3 points. So he's like knocking on wood and doing anything. I was like, dude, you just got to get prepared for these Nick Chubb touchdowns. And and sure enough, Nick Chubb, scores 2 touchdowns. He's like, you did this. You're the reason I lost. Like, no, man, it's Nick Chubb. He's going to get his points.
Absolutely.
That's it for the rundown, guys. Let's hand out some awards. I'll start things off. My award is the Make It Make Sense. Any ideas?
5.47 yards per catch between tackles.
Yeah, that really gives it away.
Yes, carry.
Since 2021, this Make It Make Sense guy is averaging 5.47 yards per carry between the tackles, which is second amongst all running backs in football. But he is the backup, and his starter is actually 38th in football in yards per carry between the tackles. Who do you think this could be?
I don't know.
It is Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard is the Jerry Jones at this point, or Ezekiel Elliott must have videos of Jerry Jones having sex with people he shouldn't be having sex with, because there's nobody that loves Ezekiel Elliott more than Jerry Jones. Immediately after Tony Pollard has a 3-touchdown game, Zeke's still our starter. And I'm over here like, if you're a Cowboys fan, how are you not livid that this man is running your team? Like, I think about Ezekiel Elliott, I know the value he brings that they think is so valuable, and it's pass protection, right? It's in passing situations. He is one of the best pass protecting running backs in football, a la David Montgomery. That's another reason why they don't go off of David Montgomery and go to Khalil Herbert, is because Montgomery is an amazing pass protector. And so I get that, but that cannot be the reason that Ezekiel Elliott sees more rushing snaps than Tony Pollard anymore. Because again, Tony Pollard shoots out of a cannon when he touches the football. Ezekiel Elliott does not do that anymore. I don't know that he ever did that. I don't know that Ezekiel Elliott in his prime had the speed that Tony Pollard and the quickness that Tony Pollard is showcasing. And 3-touchdown game. Well, guess what? Ezekiel Elliott in his entire career has never had a 3-touchdown game. So make it make sense, Dallas. Make it make sense, Jerry. This man needs to be on the field. This man should be the starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys.
Look, Sweetcar, it's just business, all right? Zeke's jersey sells more, and Jerry Jones just cares about the money.
Zeke just does a bunch of this and gets fat eating off the field and doesn't do anything on the field anymore. So I'm sick of it as somebody who could give two shits about the Cowboys. I can only imagine as Cowboys fans watching Tony Pollard week in and week out in like the limited amount of touches he gets, average 6 yards a carry, but continue to not be that That does not make sense to me.
This is not like the Cooper Rush and Dak Prescott thing.
Right? No, this is not that at all. No. This just makes no sense. This is the epitome of Jerry Jones. Ezekiel Elliott must have something on Jerry Jones.
All right, moving on to our next award. This award is called the Half-Pound Flame Grilled 100% Beef Patties Topped with Smoky Bacon, Melted Cheese, and Stacker Sauce Award.
Something that sounds really, really delicious. I have no idea. That's a very, very long name, though, so you're gonna have to somehow condense it, because I'm not gonna be able to fit that whole thing on our screen. But who is getting this award?
So this is the Double Stack Award. This is the AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts Award, because if you had both of them on your team, there's a really, really, really good chance you won. It's amazing. It's amazing how the connection they have there. I don't think any other team really has this type of connection, maybe outside of Burrow and Chase, this late into the season. And they're just dominating. And I think we're just scratching the surface as far as what AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts can do together. They're both healthy. So I think that deserves some notice as the new best quarterback wide receiver duo in the NFL.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, with the way they played this week, absolutely.
Dude, he seemed unstoppable. And again, he had the opportunity to get 5 touchdowns.
This is depressing as a Steelers fan. All right. My award for this week is the Newton's First Law Award. You guys know the Newton's First Law?
Some thermodynamics thing?
No, that's a different one.
Oh, that's a different one.
First, is that what goes up must come down?
An object in motion stays in motion. Any idea who this person is?
Yeah, it's Foreman.
It's not Foreman. It's not.
Derrick Henry.
It's Derrick Henry. That's right.
That was my guess.
And the biggest thing is like 190 yards after contact. This guy is in motion and is going to continue to go in motion. A solid day. Like what was it? 2 touchdowns, 219 yards, 6.8 yards per carry average. I mean, he just did it all. Allowed them to win the game against the Texans. So Newton's First Law Award goes to Derrick Henry. Foreman was a good guess though.
Yeah, Foreman was a good guess. And I read somewhere that the way they view Foreman, because wasn't he backing up Derrick Henry last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, the way they view Foreman is like he runs like Derrick Henry. And I don't know if he like
He
picked
looks
up.
like Derrick Henry at
He
times.
does, yeah.
He does. I see a lot of similar mannerisms as well. And so that's why that's kind of impressive. Looks like I'm going to have to do my first audible of the season. Since you went ahead and gave your award to Derrick Henry, my game ball was going to go to Derrick Henry, but I don't want to double up. So quick, real audible Omaha at the line of scrimmage here. And I'm going to give my game ball to Mr. Triple Threat CMC. For a guy who threw a touchdown, ran a touchdown, and caught a touchdown. I mean, there's really nothing else that needs to be said. That dude can do it all. That is truly the ceiling that we continue to talk about that CMC has in fantasy when he's healthy. There is so much that he can do for your team. It's actually unbelievable. And again, what better pairing and matchup than him in a Kyle Shanahan offense? I get giddy as a football fan just thinking about the possibilities that are Kyle Shanahan and CMC. So my game ball this week is going to go to CMC.
Cool. My game ball is going to Alvin Kamara. Not even really for bias purposes. He led the NFL in fantasy points this week. Alvin Kamara had 18 rushes. I mentioned this earlier for 62 yards and a touchdown. 9 for 10 receiving, which is where the money is at if you're a running back, for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. So welcome back. That's going to be really, really helpful for Kamara owners moving forward.
I'm also going to have to call an audible Omaha because Shisho had the double stack and my guy was going to be Jalen Hurts. So I am going to go with Tyreek Hill, the cheetah. No touchdowns for him, but it doesn't matter because he had 180 yards on 12 receptions. Just a solid day. They were just giving him the ball every single time. I mean, it's part of it is also the Lions defense, but part of it is because Tyreek Hill is that good. And, I think it was like last year we talked about Tua has the quickest release, and now he throws to one of the quickest guys in the NFL with Tyreek Hill. It's a perfect marriage. And so Tyreek Hill gets the game ball for me this week.
2 quick things. Some people probably can't even see that on their screen when they're watching. Like Tua throws it, Tyreek catches it, and it's happening so fast that you don't even know it happens.
Poor camera guy.
Yeah, that's a tall order to be cameraman for Dolphins games right now because of how fast things are happening. Those are the awards, guys. Let's end the episode real quick, previewing Thursday night football. We've already talked so much about these Eagles and their easy ass schedule. They're traveling to Houston to take on the Texans. And guys, there's only one thing I really want to highlight about this preview. If you are a Miles Sanders owner, this is the week that you are full sending Miles Sanders into your starting lineup. And here's why. Just really quickly. These Texans, last week, we already talked about it. Derrick Henry, 32 carries, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns. The week before that, Josh Jacobs, 20 carries, 143 yards, 3 touchdowns. The week before that, Travis Etienne had 10 carries for 71 yards, but the Jaguars as a whole, 26 carries, 136 yards rushing. Before that, Austin Eckler, 13 carries, 60 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 catches, 49 yards, and a touchdown. Week before that, Khalil Herbert, 20 carries, 157 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The worst offense in the league, the Denver Broncos, 31 carries for 149 yards. And Jonathan Taylor, the biggest bust of the season, his only good game was against who? The Houston Texans, 31 carries, 161 yards, and a touchdown. Those stat lines by running backs are insanity. So if this is a week, if you're a Miles Sanders owner and you've just been deploying him as RB2 or flex or whatever, this is the week that I expect, and the thing about the Eagles is they're not going to have Miles Sanders have 4 rushing touchdowns because the minute Miles Sanders gets in the end zone, they're like, you know what? Boston Scott, come on down. You know what? Kenneth Gainwell, come on down. You know what? Random backup fullback, come on down. So don't expect 3 touchdowns from Miles Sanders, but I think you can safely expect a really nice day from the running game of Philadelphia. I don't even know that Hurts is necessarily going to have to run, even though he probably can at will. This game could get ugly fast. The Eagles are favored by 13 points on the road. I just think it's going to be run because Houston can't stop the run. The Eagles may not have to throw very many passes this game. Do you guys have anything else to talk about in this Thursday night football matchup?
The matchup that we talked about, the receiver we talked about, Devontae Smith, that's an intriguing matchup. Devontae Smith versus Derek Stingley Jr. You're probably still starting Devontae Smith in your lineups if you have him, but that worries me for Devontae Smith holders. But AJ Brown should still be able to feed.
You think Derek Stingley is going to guard the second wide receiver and not AJ Brown?
Derek Stingley is on the depth chart as the second cornerback, but if he's guarding AJ Brown, then I mean that would
he's been guarding all the number one wide receivers so far. So who's the other guy that's above him on the depth chart?
There is Steven Nelson.
Yeah,
sounds like some nerd that I knew in like 7th grade or something. Steven Nelson. Derek Stingley Jr. is probably going to be on AJ Brown, but nonetheless, this matchup is truly David versus Goliath, 13-point spread. As a bettor, I'm still comfortable laying 13 points down for the Philadelphia Eagles, just because how in the world are the Texans going to stop one of the scariest rushing offenses on all of football? I just don't see a world where that happens. That's the episode, guys. Thank you guys so much for sticking through it all. Another week is in the books. Another exciting week, trade deadline. Let's see how this kind of shakes the second half of the season up. And, if teams make a jolt into playoff positioning or start to tank for draft capital. Again, if you're following us on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. If you're watching on YouTube. Listen to us on any platform that you can get your podcasts at. I'm Sweetcard. That's your show. That's Show It. We're the only playbook. Have a fantastic week.